Now that we've gone over Boolean operators, choosing a database, and coming up with synonyms and keywords, let's do some actual searching to show you how this works. So from the library's homepage, I'm going to click on databases. If I already know the database that I'm looking for, I could type it in here into the search box. If not, I could go to just click on View All Databases. And then I'll use this drop-down menu to scroll down to Public Health. I'll now be shown a list of all the databases the library has that have public health coverage, or where you're likely to find public health related articles that you're looking for. At the top in this yellow box, we have what we call our best bets. Those are databases that are sort of the main go-to databases for the field of public health. So this is where you're most likely to find what you're looking for. You'll probably recognize PubMed, which I'm sure you've used before. One thing that I like to point out to students to make sure that they understand is that Medline is actually a database that is searchable through multiple platforms and tools. So PubMed is just one platform that is actually searching the Medline database, which you can see kind of explained here. If I go to Medline here, that's for me searching the same database but using the EBSCO platform. This is just important to remember so that you know that you don't have to search both of these. You'll just duplicate your work. I'm going to use the Medline EBSCO platform because I like it better, especially as you're learning to do more advanced searches, and I'll explain more why I like it as we get into it. Okay, so this is what the EBSCO platform looks like. One of the reasons why I like this platform better is that when you're doing something like a lit review or maybe a topic that you really want to cast a wide net and get as much as you can with your literature search, this is a really useful way to do that. So if I click on Choose Databases, now I can see all the databases that the library subscribes to from EBSCO, and what I can do is I can actually search them all at one time. So any of these, if I click on the small arrow next to it, it will give me a short blurb explaining what is within this database, what kind of coverage and subject coverage does it have. So we already have Medline clicked. For public health topics, some of the main ones that are going to be in here that you'll want to add would be CINAHL, APA PsycInfo. Sometimes if you're interested in a more global perspective, you could add in Global Health. And then there's also some of these kind of smaller databases that you can add in just to see. Any of these can be changed at any time, so you're not married to any of these choices. And then the last one is Sports Discus, which sometimes we add in if you're doing anything related to health, kinesiology, exercise, and that type of thing. So now if I click on Show All, I can see all the databases that I'm going to be searching in right now. When we were talking about Boolean operators and keywords, one of the things that we discussed was coming up with synonyms and connecting them with OR. So the other thing that I like about the EBSCO platform is that it has this 3-box model. Why that is nice is that it helps you when you're still learning how to use the ands and ors to keep them organized and not to mess up your search, because if you put an or in the wrong spot with your search, it can very easily totally throw off your entire search and your results will be really irrelevant or not focused on your specific topic. I'll show you what it looks like. So in this example, we're pretending that my research topic is, are digital interventions effective in reducing loneliness in elderly populations? So I have 3 main concepts. I have elderly populations, I have loneliness, and I have digital interventions. So for each of those concepts, they're each going to get their own box. And then I'm going to leave these ands alone because remember, I want each of my concepts to be present in whatever articles come back. Within each box, however, that's where I will put in the synonyms I brainstormed for each of those concepts, because articles might use different language, different words to talk about the same thing. For example, digital interventions. Someone might not write about that or use that specific word in their article, but they might have created an app, which is a digital intervention. So I want to make sure that I've brainstormed and come up with as many of those words as I possibly can for each of my concepts. The other thing that's really nice about EBSCO is that it will suggest some of those synonyms for me, which can be super helpful. So I'll start out with my concept of elderly populations. If I start typing that in, I can see that it already has a very long list of other words that someone might use to talk about elderly populations. So say I like this one. If I have any others that I haven't seen here, I could always add them in. But it looks like it got all the ones that I brainstormed. Just make sure that there is an or in between each word or phrase if it maybe has two words. And then I'll skip to the next line. Again, leaving that and alone. So the next concept we have is this idea of loneliness. Again, if I start to type in loneliness and say or, we'll start to come up with other synonyms, other words that I might use for loneliness. I kind of like this one, but I was also interested in this subject in terms of loneliness and maybe like depression. So I'm going to also add in depression. So what I'll write is I'll just type in my or, and then I'll start writing depression. I could also add in the idea of just mental health in general. I'm now ready for my last concept, which is this idea of digital interventions, and I'm going to do the same thing. Start typing digital intervention, say or, and then see what kind of suggestions I get and go from there. I kind of like this one, but I also would want to add technology. See if we got internet yet. Okay, so let's add internet as well. Now that I have my three main concepts of my research question, with synonyms brainstormed for each concept and ors in between, I'm ready to start searching. So right now I have 180,000 results. What I like to tell students is that you should not stop searching until you have a reasonable amount of results to go through every single one. That doesn't mean that you are reading the full text of each of these results. That means that you're able to scroll through like this, reading the title and the abstract, and making a judgment of whether or not that article suits what you're looking for. So one of the ways to really quickly do that and to scale down this number is to use this selective field option. What you can do is actually narrow this down to just a title search, and that's going to very quickly focus on our search results. The reason why is it's very easy for an article to perhaps just use the word older or elder in passing in an abstract. But if it uses it in the title, then it's more likely that that is a really major concept and part of that article, and it is a way for us to focus in our search. I usually like to change these one at a time to title and search each time just to see how this number changes so that we don't do too much and then end up with no results. So you can see just by changing this one, I went from 180,000 to 13,000 results. So a huge difference. I'll try it now by adding this one in as a title search and searching again. And this one as well. So now I'm down to 246 results. The next thing that I probably would want to do is, this is a topic that I might want to only see more recent work on, especially as digital interventions and technology has changed so much. So I can do that here on the side by just dragging this date range over. So I might drag it to perhaps only the last 10 years. For this course also, you're going to want to make sure that you have scholarly peer-reviewed journals. scholarly peer-reviewed journals. So you could also click on that filter. And then the other thing is that you have been asked to only find primary studies. So you should have learned about that in the pyramid that I shared with you. But there is actually a way for us to try to eliminate secondary studies from your search as well. So if I click on this add button, 99% of the time, when a study is a systematic review or a meta-analysis or a literature review, they tend to put that in as part of the title. So what we can do is actually change this to not, and then type the kind of different types of secondary studies that we would find. So we have systematic review or meta-analysis or scoping review or literature review. So now I'm telling it to don't bring me back anything that says these words, and I'm going to put it as a title search because, as I said, they tend to put this as part of the title. So that eliminated about 33. So now we're down to a reasonable amount where you could probably go through and read each one of these titles and abstracts to see whether or not it is relevant to your topic that you're searching on. We've also hopefully eliminated most of the secondary studies and limited to only the most recent work. To get access to any of these, all I need to do is click on them, and then there'll be a link here at the side either to the full text or there'll be this BU info link, which you can click on, and then it will take you out to search the library's catalog to see where we have the full text for this. I'll just go to either download the PDF, or I can go to article link and be taken directly to that journal article's homepage.